Welcome to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. I'm Zach Kaufman here with Ryan D'Amico.
What's up? Yeah, we're back, man. Took a little hiatus there for a little while after the Super Bowl just to kind of, unwind a little bit. And you were under the weather and, it's kind of after the Super Bowl too, it's kind of a down kind of period in sports a little bit. Everyone's kind of coming off that high of the Super Bowl and transitioning into the world of NBA and college basketball and, NHL for some people. And we're back and we got a plethora of topics to discuss. I think we're going to have a good discussion tonight, Zach. We were talking before we went on the air. Some really cool topics, some controversial topics, and some fun topics as well. So it should be a pretty good show tonight too. I think listeners are going to get a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, we had a little time off like you mentioned there, and now we're back and ready to go. And I'm going to dive right into where I wanted to start. This past weekend, for the first time this year, I got to see the Sixers playing live in person. They came down here to D.C. playing against the Wizards. It was not as close of a game as I would prefer. So the Wizards got up big there, especially in the third quarter. They just blew them out in the second and third quarter. But a couple of things really stood out to me. First off, when it comes to NBA players, they are some giant people. I was laughing about the Wizards have a backup, Tim Frazier, backup point guard. He just looked tiny compared to all these other teammates of his around him anytime they were in a huddle. And he's 6'1". But among those giant players, Joel Embiid just looked like another non-human. He is a humongous, ginormous human being. Like he is just a huge body that's unstoppable around the rim.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he's a freak, and it's funny because if you actually look at some of the pictures of him from when he was younger and just starting to play basketball, like he was a twig. Like he was really thin. So I mean, he's really bulked up thanks to college, thanks to the NBA. And I mean, he's really kind of thickened up and kind of grown into his body. But yeah, he is a big dude. I mean, the Sixers. I mean, just kind of focus on the Sixers. They as a team, they're big. Like Simmons is big. Like he's almost a 7-foot point guard. I mean, Sarge is a big dude. We talk about Embiid. So, I mean, they have some size, too, kind of at every level. They're definitely a pretty big team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But Embiid is fun to watch. And he had what seemed like a quiet 25 points. He was just so consistent. He didn't do anything extremely flashy. But he just kind of they really relied on him throughout the game, and he really carried that team. I liked what he did. It was the second game of a back-to-back for the Sixers. It made it a little more difficult. They shot terribly, which kept them out of it. But one of the reasons I'm excited for this team is they finally have some shooters, and they're supposed to be adding Ersan Ilyasova soon once he gets bought out from the Hawks as well, another big guy that can shoot. But with J.J. Redick, with Marco Bellinelli, some of those other guys, Embiid, Sarge, they can hit threes. They don't do it as consistently. But the Sixers went a long time without a legit shooter. So I'm excited to see that. And that's one of the things that can cause some upsets and get them some wins there if they hopefully can make the playoffs.
Yeah, and the Sixers, I mean, let's just kind of dive, right into the 76ers. And, what a February this team has had. I mean, tonight's going to be their last game of February. They're hanging on right now. They're in Miami. I think last I saw they were up 4 with about 7 minutes to go. So, I mean, they're hanging on there. They've only lost 2 games, I believe, in the month of February. So, they've been on a roll. They were winners of 7 straight up until the game, Zach, you talked about that you were at against Washington, which was the back half of a back-to-back stretch, and they clearly didn't have their legs, like you talked about, couldn't hit those shots from long distance. So, but I mean, it's nice to see this team really start to put it all together. I mean, they're starting to put it all together. They kind of had some injuries there, obviously, with Embiid not playing at some spurts and not playing in back-to-backs. You lucked out there too, by the way. This game wasn't in the first or second month of the season because Embiid probably wouldn't have played. So
right.
You definitely got fortunate there. But I mean, I know Redick missed some time there. He's back. So now that they got everyone back, they're adding some pieces like you talked about. This team's definitely going to make the playoffs. I really don't see a situation where this team doesn't make the playoffs. And I'm telling you, I don't think it's out of the realm to say that this team can't, upset the Celtics or even upset the Raptors. I mean, I really don't. And I don't think either one of those teams want to play the Sixers. The Sixers are the 7th seed right now. As it stands, they'd play Boston. I think they'd give Boston a hell of a series.
I'm a little more doubtful. I think the Sixers will take a small step forward this year in making the playoffs, which is a huge improvement from in the past. And I think they can win 1 or 2 games against one of those teams. Even maybe the Wizards, although the Wizards have swept them throughout the season. They're 4-0 against them. But I feel like they could make it more of a game than what it was there. They missed a lot of open shots, both mid-range and long distance there from 3. They had a lot of misses from those shooters with J.J. Redick and Marco Bellinelli, which is what they do. So I think they could pick up 1 win, maybe 2. I don't see them really making a series out of it. But that's a huge first step for such a young team. Yeah. And they can really build on that playoff appearance at this point and continue getting better as some of these other teams in the East get older and start dropping off a little more.
And I think it's imperative that they do hang on and find a way to get into the playoffs just for that experience factor. They are so young, just to get a taste of the playoffs. And kind of like that was my thought process with the Philadelphia Eagles earlier this year. It was like, obviously I didn't expect them to win the Super Bowl, but as it got later in the year, that started to become a realization. But early midway through the year, I was like, get to the playoffs, win some, playoff experience, and then like 2-3 years, then start vying for the championship. Obviously, this is more realistic for the Sixers in that realm is, look, just get the experience. Hell, if you upset a team in the first round, that's just cherry on top. But at least just get there and get that experience for you because they are so young. And Zach, I'm interested to get your take on this because some interesting stuff has been in the works as far as LeBron King James as far as possibly joining the Sixers in free agency this summer. Because, look, he's a free agent at the end of the year. No one really knows where he's going. Nobody knows where he's leaning. Rumors have come out in the last week or so that he was in Philadelphia checking out schools for his kids, if that's the destination he's going to. Some Philly fans bought 4 billboards in Ohio, and they just got unveiled this morning. Trying to lure LeBron James to Philly, which I don't know if you saw them, but the billboards are actually pretty cool. So I'm interested in your take. 1, do you think it's a possibility? And 2, would you like it? Because I've actually heard some people that say they think if LeBron came to Philly, it would actually hinder the growth of some of the young guys. What's your thoughts? And I'll give you mine after you're done.
I just see that as highly unlikely. I think in the past, the other couple times he was a free agent, there were lesser teams that kind of got their hopes up. They put all their effort in towards getting him, and it didn't happen. I fully support the Sixers going after him. If you can get one of the best players in the history of the NBA, absolutely do it. And I think that's fine. If that hinders some of the development of their young players to play with one of the greatest players of all time, you take that. They're learning from the best. I don't understand how that hinders their development. They can see his work ethic. They can see his effort in and out throughout the season. They can see how he leads a team, how to win in the playoffs, all of that. I can't imagine that really hindering their development. I think the hindrance would be, okay, they might not get as many minutes, but they're still developing under him. It's just the same way as Aaron Rodgers developing behind Brett Favre there. And then once he got his time, once LeBron would retire or move on to another team, they'd get their chance. But you'd want to learn from a guy like that.
I mean, that starting 5, Zach, would be nasty. It would be Simmons and LeBron in the backcourt. and your front court is Saric, Embiid, and Covington. That's a great starting five. That would be one of the best starting fives in the NBA.
Yeah, it'd be a nice setup. And they'd still have Markelle Fultz coming off the bench there. Possibly, exactly. If they'd re-sign someone like J.J. Redick, I think they need to add shooters around LeBron. That's when he's at his best. He kind of struggled early in his career when they only had a Mo Williams around him.
You would know better than me. You would know better than me because I don't remember off the top of my head. Is Redick only signed through this year?
Yeah, they gave him a huge deal. I want to say it was like
it was a big
$20 million just for that 1 year. So kind of like the Eagles did with Alshon Jeffrey.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And look, I'm in the same boat as you. If you can get LeBron, obviously you welcome him with open arms, and I don't think he would hinder anything. I mean, with the pieces that they have, obviously you can set up to compete for championships, especially the way the East is, where it doesn't really have that kind of dominant team. Like you go to the Western Conference where it's like, holy hell, we're scared shitless of the Golden State Warriors. The East doesn't really have that. So if they can obviously add them, great. I don't think it's going to happen. I think LeBron, I don't know where he's going to go. I wouldn't even know where to kind of start with that. He definitely wants to go to a place where, if he does leave Cleveland, where he legit has a shot to win right away. Because, look, he's not getting any younger. At this point in his career, he's accomplished so much. He's just looking to win at this point, which I can't blame him. But, look, if that would happen, it would be fantastic. And the city of Philadelphia would just continue to trend upward in the sports world. I know I talked to you before the show. I said I wanted to touch on the Flyers briefly. Anything else you wanted to touch on with the Sixers before we move on to the Flyers?
Those were the biggest things that stood out. The other thing that did stand out, one player that I think is going to be a solid role player, unfortunately I think for another team, is Richaun Holmes. He doesn't get a lot of time, but when he does, he's a very efficient player at rebounding, at scoring around the basket. He doesn't do much more than kind of lay it in and dunk. But he's a
grinder.
Yeah, he's a very solid role player, and he was a guy that came in, and his first 2-3 minutes in, he's grabbing rebounds. He got a blocked shot. He scores a couple easy baskets. Just a very efficient player in small amounts of time. And I think his role is not going to expand there with Joel Embiid unless he has another major injury. But if he were to go somewhere else that needs even a number 2 big man, he could be a very reliable, solid player, role player on another team.
Yeah, I do like Richaun Holmes. It's funny you bring him up. In the games that I've been able to watch the Sixers this year, he's definitely been a kind of a pleasant surprise and really kind of given you some really good minutes so far this season. And he's kind of that grinder, kind of that guy that, look, he does the dirty work, and he's gonna. When he's on the floor, he's efficient, and that's all you can ask for. So I do like him. There's definitely some bench players in the Sixers I really wish they would get rid of. Jared Bayless is one. I'm not a Bayless guy at all. I would love for them to get rid of him. And then there's another big they have. I'm drawing a blank on that I despise.
I know Trevor Booker,
Amir Johnson.
Yeah, Amir Johnson.
That's what. And Brett Brown is in love with him for some reason. He gets minutes, way more minutes than Richaun Holmes. And I don't understand it. Holmes is so much more efficient. And the team seems to thrive when he's on the floor versus Amir Johnson. Yet Amir Johnson still gets minutes. And I don't get it. And I would be very happy if Amir Johnson would just get out of town.
Because I know I was seeing today they might buy out or release Trevor Booker to make room for Ilyasova if they're going to bring him back.
Okay.
I felt like those two were very redundant. Trevor Booker and Amir Johnson were almost the exact same player, kind of splitting minutes that didn't really stand out for anything. Booker had some nice numbers last year because he was getting lots of time on a terrible Nets team, but he's just kind of a fine bench player. Both of them are very similar.
Yeah, no, they are. And it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens with the roster as we go into the offseason because, look, obviously we're going to enjoy the ride the rest of the year and hopefully into the playoffs and see what they can do. But obviously the eyes continue to just kind of look towards the future and see kind of how the roster can get constructed. So now like I said, I want to kind of switch briefly to the Flyers because, look, I know hockey isn't a huge sport in America anymore. It's not even close to what it was. And even the mid to late 90s and early 2000s, it's really kind of taken a back seat. But look, again, the city of Philadelphia is continuing to trend upward. The Flyers, who at one point this year had lost 10 in a row, and people were calling for head coach Dave Haxtell's head, saying, you got to fire this guy. He's not an NHL coach. He needs to go back to college. And Ron Hextall the next day had a press conference and said, look, he's our coach. He's not going anywhere. We're playing well. He said, basically, we're playing well. The outcome has just been unfortunate. And he basically said, look, this is our team, and I have faith in them. And they've rebounded tremendously. I mean, this team is probably the hottest team in hockey right now. They had a shootout win last night on the road in Montreal, hard-fought game, and that put them in first place in the Metropolitan Division, coming all the way back to take that top spot and playing some really good hockey and overcoming some serious injuries. I mean, goaltending and defensemen. A couple forwards went out. So, I mean, it's really exciting to not only have the Sixers be playing well, but I'm a big hockey guy. I always have been since I was young. It's just a sport I've always really enjoyed. And the city of Philadelphia is a hockey town, too, one of the better hockey cities in America. When the Flyers are doing well, that city is really, really fun to be around. So it's pretty cool to see the Flyers playing so well. I know you're not a huge hockey guy, but I mean, have you checked out any games recently or anything?
I have not at
No,
all.
not at all.
The closest I came was the Wizards play at the same arena there as the Caps. So I saw some of the Caps logos and stuff. I was looking because it was interesting to me how I could still see kind of the out. There's some kind of like standard out around the basketball court where that's where the glass would go in for the hockey games. And then they have their courtside seats below that. And then some of the other upper seating behind the basketball hoop. But you could kind of see that. That's my only connection to hockey. I don't follow it at all.
I mean, it's just kind of cool. And I get that. I mean, not many people do anymore in America. It's just not what it used to be. But the city of Philadelphia, man, as far as sports go, and it's cool because it's the city that we follow and have a pretty good connection with. I like all of the pro teams. I know you like your fair share as well. So it's cool that the city is in the national spotlight right now. You know, Eagles win the Super Bowl, Flyers and Sixers are just on a tear. The Phillies are slowly getting better. So it's pretty cool to see the city of Philadelphia really just do a complete 180 from where it was just 2 to 3 short years ago. I mean, this city was – these teams – and not just like every major sports team 2-3 years ago was terrible. Like the Eagles were going through a train wreck that was Chip Kelly. They were trying to move on from that. The Flyers, I mean, they were cycling through head coaches and thinking about trading away their best players because they weren't performing. Phillies, they've been kind of a train wreck for the last handful of years, moving on from their glory days. And then the Sixers, they've been trusting the process for God knows how long. So, look. It's nice to see that things finally starting to come around for the city of Philadelphia, and it looks like things are going to continue to trend upward. Eagles look like they're going to be around for a while. Sixers are going to be around for a while. I think the Flyers now, they're going to be around for a while, especially if they get a goaltender. And then the Phillies, they're trending in the right direction, have some really good young pieces that in the future they can build around and add some veteran pieces to. So pretty exciting, you have to admit, in Philadelphia right now with sports.
Yeah, they're in a good situation, even as someone who's not an Eagles fan there. But both Eagles and Sixers, I can 100% agree. They've got a good situation when it comes to being youthful. They're not set up to be kind of a one-year wonder there that has 1 year way above what they normally would. Kind of like we've talked about that we expect with a team like the Jaguars. Or that we've seen in the past, that there's constantly teams that are up 1 year and then just never have that year again. Both these teams are built around young, growing talent there, and I think that's a great foundation for those two. Yeah,
so I mean, it's good times in the city of Philadelphia, and I'm excited because I mean I'm a 4-for-4 guy. Those are my squads, and it has been rough there for a while. And the Eagles getting the Super Bowl, I hope is only the beginning. I hate to sound greedy, but when you get that taste of success, you just want to kind of keep tasting it, just like anything, just like even in life and whatever it is you're doing. You get that taste of success, you want to keep tasting it and keep getting back and back and back. So hope that's how it works out for the city of Philadelphia in the sports world. So what's next on the slate there, Zach? What's the next topic?
So next we're staying in, for the most part, basketball in the NBA there, but this also touches on a couple other ones. Since we had the All-Star game, All-Star weekend somewhat recently, I wanted to bring that up. That just I'm a huge fan when it comes to players in the NBA especially. I grew up with Allen Iverson standing out above everyone as the most exciting player to watch during our young years there for the Sixers. Once he was gone, it was kind of – the Sixers went through a long, rough patch there where I didn't really have a favorite player from their team. Andre Iguodala was a very good, consistent player, but not someone that – because at that stage, I was in middle school, I was in high school playing basketball, and he wasn't really a guy I could model my game after. So a lot of my favorite players were on other teams. I've always been very player-centric when I watch the NBA, on guys that I can model my game after, guys that have overcome things, guys that are just exciting to watch, things like that really stand out. So you'd think something like the All-Star game would be one of my favorite things, to see some of the greatest players in the world come together. I hate it every single year. It's miserable. It's just not something enjoyable. I don't understand why people watch it. It's just like, yes, you have the greatest players out there, but they're just kind of goofing around. It looks like when you go down to the local rec center, the local YMCA, and there's a bunch of guys that kind of look like basketball players trying to throw alley-oops and not connecting. Like, it's just a step up from that. Like,
what are you saying? What are you saying? It looks like when I try to play basketball. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know about that. I've never seen you try and accept an alley-oop there. You kind of know your limitations.
Maybe on the 8-foot rim, but definitely not a 10-foot rim.
Right. But that's the kind of like lackadaisical, like, man, this is fine. And I've seen more intense games at like a YMCA, at our college rec center, like things like that got far more intense games going. It's just kind of, man, the game is bad. It's the same thing with the Pro Bowl. I haven't watched in years. Like, it's the best players gathered, but it just doesn't inspire me. It doesn't interest me. I don't really care at all. Do you have any thoughts there on All-Star games, Pro Bowls, things like that for any of the sports leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. I mean, if you follow sports, and especially if you follow sports the way we follow sports, I think everyone has an opinion on All-Star games and that sort of, just kind of how bad of a product it's turned into. And I think that's just kind of, in my opinion, it's because of the four major sports. Hockey and football are extremely physical, so you don't want those All-Star games to be like a regular game because you don't want someone getting hurt for an exhibition game.
Right.
Basketball, I think basketball does like a disservice. Like, I think the All-Star game would be better if the players actually were trying and were actually trying to play defense instead of like trying to give us these, alley-oop passes off the backboard. I mean, they're fun, don't get me wrong, but I think that would be more fun if it was like in the middle of a game, like where teams are D'ing up, where, guys are trying to get stops, which that doesn't happen. Baseball, on the other hand, I think out of the four major sports is the best one, and I think the reason for that is because it actually means something. You win the All-Star game, the Major League Baseball All-Star game, that league gets home field advantage in the World Series, which, I mean, is obviously a big deal. So, you have kind of something to play for, especially if you're one of those upper echelon teams at that point in the season where, okay, I'm going to the All-Star game, my team's in first place. shit, I'd love to win because, I mean, if we get to the World Series, hell yeah, we want home field advantage. So I think that, maybe they need to figure something out as far as giving just the players more incentive to want to play. I mean, I think that's kind of what it comes down to, because the NBA and the NFL, boy, they are just absolute jokes. Hockey's a joke too. I mean, hockey's really a joke. I mean, you can tell, like you said with the NBA, they're just kind of going through the motions, just kind of dicking around, and it's nothing special at all. So, All-Star games, boy, they've really just kind of fallen off the earth. And like I said to you before I thought All-Star Saturday Night this year was terrible. I thought it was really bad. I watched the majority of them, and the skills contest was okay. The three-point contest was terrible. I mean, guys were just bad. And the dunk contest was just really nothing exciting, in my opinion. I thought, again, the best dunker got robbed, just like Aaron Gordon a couple years ago. And it wasn't very exciting. So just as a whole, All-Star weekends aren't anything that I really deal with anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree that I didn't catch the skill contest at all. I've watched that before. It's fine. It's fun, but it's nothing I care about or I'm that concerned about. If I'd seen it on the TV at that time, I probably would have watched at that moment. But since it wasn't convenient, I didn't do that on my own. The 3-point contest, it was fine. I was kind of watching in and out of that. I wasn't real intrigued. I typically, if I watch that, I just watch the later stages anyway. Instead of watching through everybody. The dunk contest is one of the most difficult things to watch live. It's a very slow process.
Very.
They go through all of the lead up, then they might even miss a dunk or two, and then get another try. Yeah. There's been years that I know it's been terrible. A lot of misses. But yeah, they go through, they might miss. Then once it's done, they go through a whole process while the people decide what they're going to rate the dunks. And then they show them, they break it down. The people go and celebrate and go pay respect to whoever's jersey they put on or whatever it is. It's just a huge process for one dunk. And then they go to the next guy and it's the same thing. And I appreciate it. It's more fun to watch the highlights, but this year there weren't even that memorable of highlights. They were just kind of fine. It was.
I think too. If you look back when the truly great dunk contests and stuff, that it involved all-timers. I mean, it involved guys like Michael Jordan and Dominique Wilkins, guys like that were the faces of the NBA at that point and still went out and put on a show for the fans. Guys don't do that anymore. I mean, LeBron's not in these dunk contests. I mean, think of some of the other great dunkers in the NBA. I'm not a huge NBA guy, so it's hard for me to kind of, think of great dunkers in the league right now. But, I mean, it's a lot of guys that you just kind of oh, okay, Victor Oladipo. All right, great. That doesn't get me excited. That doesn't get me to be hey, guys, sorry, not going out this weekend. I'm staying in and watching LeBron James and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so compete in the dunk contest. It doesn't have that flair anymore. And I think that's, in my opinion, I've said it for a while now, that's the biggest reason, is because it doesn't have the big name players in it like it did years and years ago.
See, my favorite dunk contest of all time didn't include those superstar players. It was the one with Nate Robinson and Andre Iguodala.
Yeah.
For sure. I thought Iguodala should have won it.
But Iggy's a good dunker, though. I mean, Iggy's a really good dunker.
But he's never been a true superstar player. He's been a good player. Same thing with Nate Robinson. One of my favorite players of all time to watch. One of the streakiest players, but he could get hot so quick. And one of my favorite all-time games to watch was, there's a game, I'm almost positive he was on the Bulls at the time, but it was a triple overtime game with him and Joe Johnson just going back.
I remember that.
and making shot after shot after shot to tie the game, to take the lead, to tie the game again. It was such a good game. I've loved Nate Robinson, but I wouldn't count him as one of those superstar players. I don't know. I don't know if that would make a big difference. I think the biggest difference is if people would do incredible dunks like we've seen in the past. Like Aaron Gordon was fantastic when he had done it previously.
He got robbed. He got
he definitely
freaking robbed. And I think that's part of the reason too. Like, I was kind of salty after seeing him not win.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Like, what's the deal? Like, I'm done with this. Like, dude, that dunk where he was basically sitting down in the air and put the ball underneath his legs, that was one of the best dunks I had ever seen.
Yeah.
And for him not to win was an absolute travesty. That dunk was incredible.
Yeah. And it wouldn't have been close. If he had done that this year, there's no question he would have won. There was like it was just,
I thought Larry Nance got robbed. I thought Nance should have won. That double tap off the backboard, like, do people just don't understand like how difficult that is? Like, I mean, that's hard. Like, I don't know. I don't know, man.
I fully agree. I feel like with that one though, it's difficult to comprehend how challenging it is. Because I know, like, I've gone to Sky Zone and tried shit like that. Like, that's
right.
That's tough to do and coordinate it, even when you're bouncing off a trampoline, hanging up in the air to get that bounce right and not hit the rim or like have anything weird happen. Like, it is very difficult to do. But I know watching it live, the first time through, it was hard to even see that he did that. And I was just kind of like, oh, that was kind of a regular dunk. But then I had to see it a couple times through to really respect it. And I felt like that was the thing that held it back, that it was because he was so close to the backboard. It was really hard to tell how difficult that actually was. But some of them, like I really did not like the one where I'm almost positive is Donovan Mitchell, where he jumped over Kevin Hart and those other two kids, like, crouched down. That it was just like,
it was lame.
It wasn't. It was someone else making the pass off the side of the backboard. It was just very, very disappointing. I felt like that with a lot of them. It was just kind of meh, not excited at all.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us back to the beginning and goes to what I said about NBA All-Star Saturday Night's just not what it used to be, and All-Star games are not what they used to be.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely. It's not something that gets me excited at all. I will be excited here moving forward as we get closer to the playoffs, and especially during the playoffs. That's always a great run, even though the NBA playoffs seem like they last for about 7 months there.
Oh yeah.
With how long those series can end up going. It'll still be some fun matchups. Usually once we get out of the first round. The first round's usually maybe 1 or 2 good matchups and then some rough ones. But from that point on, always worth watching to me, to see some of those great players, to see some of those great matchups. So we'll move from there into the next topic I have, which is looking forward towards the NFL draft and seeing, out of these top couple teams picking in the draft, which team we feel like has the best chance to kind of turn themselves around. So at the top, a couple things stood out to me. Picks 1 through 12 all have pretty terrible quarterback situations. Like, that's a pretty major need on all of them. And at best, they're kind of mediocre. So we got the Browns, the Giants, the Colts. I'm going to include the Texans in this, even though they don't have that top pick. They traded to the Browns. The Broncos, Jets, Buccaneers, Bears, Raiders, 49ers, Dolphins, and Bengals, as those are the worst teams getting the top picks there. So the question is, if you were a GM and could pick any of those teams to try and turn around through what's already there and what you can manage, whether it's in the draft, free agency, bringing in a new coach, any way you want to handle it, what is your top choice out of those teams? And if you need a little minute, you can let me know. I'll go into mine.
To me, this is not overly difficult. There are some intriguing spots for sure. Call me crazy. I wouldn't turn down the Browns. Just because at that point you're kind of betting on yourself because of the plethora of picks that they have. I mean, they have a ton of draft picks. So, yeah. I mean, if you can get those right, you set the franchise up, sitting pretty well going forward. Although I'm not going to pick the Browns. Where I look is, and it comes down to two teams for me, an NFC team and an AFC team. One of which has their quarterback. The other one is pretty much a quarterback away. That's the Broncos, and then that's the 49ers. So I'm on the fence there with those two teams because I look at the Broncos and I see pieces in place. A solid defense you can win with. Playmakers on offense that, obviously both wide receivers, most of the skill positions, running backs, it could definitely improve. But if you can just get a quarterback in there, I mean, that team is, set to win and can really, I think, compete in the AFC West. But I'm actually going to go with the Niners. The Niners, look, they have their quarterback. It's pretty clear that, Garoppolo, they signed him to a big deal. He's their guy going forward. He's proven it with the two teams, with the Patriots, and he's proven it with the Niners, albeit 5 games at the end of the season. But still, looked really good in those games. Lit up the Jaguars, the AFC team that went to the AFC Championship game, and people thought that was a great defense. He lit them up. So I'm going to pick the Niners in the fact that, look, I think we have our quarterback. Now we can build around him. We still have some nice pieces in place. We have some really key guys on defense that we can build around that we've gotten in the last couple drafts that are still young and can really, turn things up. Look, we need to get some playmakers on offense. That's a given. I mean, we need, playmakers on the outside and whatnot, but offensive line's okay. And look, San Francisco. I mean, that's a nice draw. I mean, if you're a free agent or something, I mean, that's a nice city. I mean, that's one of the nicer cities in the country. Not a city that's known for crime or anything like that. It's a nice, just great weather. You got pretty women. I mean, that's California. I mean, that's beautiful. So, for me, Zach, I'm going with the Niners. I like the direction the Niners are going in. It's actually funny. One of my buddies at work is a big Niners fan. He's a little older than we are, and he's been a Niners fan since he was a kid, and he's really excited with the direction that they're going in. And I told him, I said, rightfully so, man. If I were you, I'd be really liking the direction the team's going with. You add another top 10 pick this year. You can add an impact player right away because you don't have to worry about quarterback. I really like what the Niners are doing. Plus, it works out well, man. The Seahawks seem to be their time seems to kind of been, coming to a close. So really the only team they have to really kind of worry about in that division now is the Rams. And let's see where things go with them. If last year was a one-hit wonder, who knows? So I'm going Niners, man. I'm going Niners.
I like that pick. I didn't quite have them on my list. I have it's still a very small sample size with Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not quite sold on how great he'll be, but I think he's definitely solid. I like that they have him in place. He's costing them a lot of money, but that's kind of the quarterback trend lately.
I don't think you can argue this though, that out of the quarterbacks in the top 10 draft picks, you would take him as the quarterback for your team, no? Out of every quarterback in that top 10, if you had to pick one, you'd pick Jimmy G, no? You're not taking Eli. You're not taking DeShone Kizer. Who else is in there? You're not taking maybe you take Andrew Luck. Maybe you take Andrew Luck because maybe he gets healthy, but you don't know about his injury concerns, man. He might not never play again. I mean,
right.
So I mean, is he was not your guy? If you had a pick in the top 10 out of those quarterbacks in the top 10 for their teams, he's got to be the best one, right?
I feel like he is currently the best one. I will give you that. I have two guys that kind of offer a little bit bigger upside, I think, with Jameis Winston and Derek Carr. They're a little bit younger there. I know Winston especially was down. Carr had some injuries here this past year. I feel like they offer a little more upside than Garoppolo. So that's the only way I'd lean if I'd want to take a chance on one of those guys. Especially if you look at money-wise, where you could get Winston and save whatever it is, like $15 million or something like that per year. I'd much rather have that situation as a GM. But I don't disagree with your choice of Jimmy G there out of those quarterbacks. I think he is the best one currently. I just like those other two a little bit better because of their upside.
All right. I mean, Winston, he's kind of a turnover machine at this point. And
Yeah.
Derek Carr, I just think I don't think he's as good as kind of people lead on to. I think what you saw last year, I think that's who he is. I really do. I remember going on one of my friends' podcasts, and I was on there to talk fantasy sports, and he was one of my busts for this year. I did not believe in Derek Carr.
Good call.
I was spot on.
Yeah.
So I'm not too high on those two guys, but I totally see where your head's at. Who's your team? Where's your head at?
So I have two teams. I know one thing that stands out with both that you mentioned being an advantage earlier. Both of these are in tougher divisions here, but I kind of like their setup. The first one is the Jets. That they kind of overperformed this past year. They played some good teams tough. They have a good foundation, especially on their defense. Some high draft picks lately. I like seeing that. I think it's a matter of bringing in a quarterback and then maybe one or two skill position players there that they can build around and build up. But I really like the young foundation there, even though they're in the Patriots division. But that could set them well if it's a 2 to 3 year rebuilding plan that once Tom Brady retires, they're a team that could make a move there and battle the Patriots towards the top of that division.
Do you think they should go and get Kirk Cousins?
No, I hate that. I think
Okay.
they need to develop a quarterback. That their best option is drafting one. I don't think they're a win now team. That's why I don't like Cousins.
Yeah.
I feel like if they get him, they'd have to add some kind of talent in the draft at receiver or running back, and it's just going to take time for them to develop into what they're going to become. And by that point, Cousins' contract's going to be up. He's going to be overpaid. It's just going to be time to move on. I don't think that's a good timeline for them. And I know that's one of the big rumors that he could go there. I don't like it. I wouldn't have anything to do with that if I was them. I'd kind of wait it out. Maybe go for like a Sam Bradford that would go cheaper, sign him to a short-term contract as we develop that top pick. Maybe it'll turn into a Mike Glennon situation where he gets cut. Fine. But I think that focus is on that pick, whoever they're taking up there towards the top. That was my top one. And then the other one is the Bears. That one stood out to me. They're a team that they played tough against some good teams. They upset a couple teams there through the year. They have some exciting players. They've got to continue improving their defense, and then they've got to get any help there at the receiver position. So they do have moves they need to make, but I like that they have the quarterback of the future in place. They don't have to worry about that right now. I'm not a huge Trubisky fan. I think he'll be fine, but I think they're at a good foundational place with some exciting players, especially the running backs there on offense. They can use them both very well. That's a team that could be on the turnaround here if they play their assets correctly.
Yeah, as far as the Bears go, that's a no for me, dog. I'm not in on the Bears just because I'm not in on Mitchell Trubisky at all. Like I didn't like him coming out of college. This is a guy that has started, I think, like 12 career games in college at quarterback, and Now you're making him the second pick in the draft. Like, I just didn't get it. And now he doesn't have any talent around him. So, yeah, I'm not a big Trubisky guy. And look, let's not forget too that the division they play in has Aaron Rodgers and has the Minnesota Vikings, who have one of the best defenses in football that him and that team has to see twice a year. So Bears, not so much. I don't get excited about. Jets, I agree with. I do like the Jets because I think the Jets. It's going to be. You talk about a team that surprised this year. I mean, damn. I mean, we talked about it a little bit on our recap show, our season recap show, but talk about a team that just really surprised people. I mean, he surprised you, surprised me, surprised everyone. And I know even some Jets fans, and Christ, they surprised the hell out of them. They were mentally prepared to, have the 1 or 2 pick in the draft this year. And look, they didn't. And, if a guy like Josh McCown can give you something like that, why can't a rookie quarterback that you bring in? And I agree with you, bring in the rookie, go that direction versus bringing a guy like Kirk Cousins in who you have to pay a shit ton of money to, and that limits you to be able to put the other pieces in place to really get that that team around you. And you see that happen a lot in sports. I mean, you see it happen with a team like the Lions and Sam Bradford or Matthew Stafford. You sign him, that limits you in other departments where you can't bring in other free agents to fill holes. You see it with the Saints. Yeah, I know they had a Super Bowl, over a decade ago, but ever since they've had Drew Brees, he limits what they can do financially. So that's the direction I would definitely go, is draft a quarterback and just keep building the team slowly but surely. So I do like the Jets, though. That's definitely a team I definitely think is on the rise.
Yeah, and there's a couple teams there I think I would very much stay away from that are just kind of those teams that are stuck in the middle. And I feel like if I were to come in as a GM, I just have to clear things out there and basically start over, whether it's trade away some of the players. But the Dolphins, the Bengals, and the Raiders, I feel like, are all stuck in that position. The Raiders were a huge disappointment last year. The other two are consistently at that kind of low, below average. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs at best and don't win a game at best. Those 3 teams just do not excite me right now. I feel like they're both very uncoordinated. They have maybe a couple young players, but then they're built more around some older veterans that just are fine. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely. I would definitely agree with all of them. Miami, they're the same story every year. Who else did you say? You said Miami. You said Cincinnati. Was that one of them?
Yeah, Cincinnati
for sure. Raiders. You know my viewpoint on Cincinnati. Good night. That's an organization that just needs to get blown up. Everyone, coach, GM, quarterback. That team needs blown up. Point blank. And then, I agree with you with Oakland for sure. It's not a situation that I want to get into. But if I was John Gruden and they paid me $100 million to come coach there, you bet your sweet ass I would come do it because that's a lot of money. But, yeah, some other teams. A team I actually mentioned, Detroit. I mean, that's a team that, people have kind of thought for, 7-8 years now was on the come up and gonna, potentially make some noise. It's just the same thing with them. I mean, they swing and they miss in the draft. They get guys like Eric Ebron and guys like that and defensive linemen that they miss on. It's just not a very well run organization. So they're a team for me that I stay away from. Is them, and then if I had to pick another one, I don't know. Maybe a team. There's a couple. I mean, maybe a team like I don't know what Kansas City's doing. Because, I mean, you have a young quarterback. That's great and all, but you get rid of Marcus Peters, Andy Reid. I'm not a Reid guy. That team doesn't have a good feel to me right now. So I wouldn't think I'd go to KC right now. But I guess that's one NFC and one AFC that I don't have a good feel on right now as far as teams I'd want to go to.
I actually love that Kansas City team. I like some of the players they're building around. They'll get Eric Berry back next season.
But I mean, but how can you like it? I mean, how can you like a team that appears to be ready to win now, albeit they haven't won, and then they just say, all right, screw it, we're just going to start with a rookie quarterback? Like, how can you like that? I mean, this team clearly is built to win now. They're not in a very overly difficult division, and they're just going to say, screw it, we're going to trade Alex Smith and roll the dice on Patrick Mahomes. Like, I don't understand that. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, at the end of the day, he'll be a rookie next year. I mean, yeah, he had 1 year to just sit back and look, but I mean, the best way to learn is to get in there and get your feet wet. And he's going to have some growing pains. Will he show flashes? Of course. Yeah. But I mean, he's going to have growing pains, and there's no way that this team next year is going to compete for the Super Bowl. There's no way. And they're wasting – you waste years by doing that, and I just don't understand it. If I was them, I would have rode out Alex Smith as long as I could and rode out with Patrick Mahomes another year or two and then throw him in there. But that's just me. Why do you like Kansas City? Explain to me.
I like what they did. I think they're just kind of accepting that Alex Smith is not a Super Bowl quarterback. He's fine getting into the playoffs, maybe win a game, clearly not this year. But I feel like that's the limit of his upside. I don't see him taking the Redskins to the playoffs. I don't see him advancing the Redskins in the playoffs, even if they somehow made it there. I think they make a good move to trade him. They get some pieces back. They don't have to pay him a crazy number like we talked about some of these expensive quarterbacks. They get a rookie on those rookie structured or a second-year player on those rookie structured contracts for the first 4 or 5 years there. So they're set up well with him being young, with Kareem Hunt being young. Travis Kelce's still somewhat young. He's like later 20s. And then on the outside, Tyreek Hill. I think they need to add some other pieces. Eric Berry was a huge loss for that defense, and I think that makes a big difference having him back, even though they lose Marcus Peters. I know I was reading about the corner that they got in the Alex Smith trade. Apparently, he's supposed to be solid. I don't really know much about him. I don't even remember his name off the top of my head.
Fuller, I think. Kendall Fuller, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. So he should be able to contribute for him. I like the team there. I like playing the upside with the younger quarterback instead of the guy that is he might have a full regression like we've seen with Matt Ryan. He might go back to being close to even in touchdowns and interceptions, and they're kind of selling him at a high point. I like that.
So let me ask you this: how many wins do Kansas City have this year? I know it's early. I know it's February. I know it's the last day in February. But as you see Kansas City right now, how many wins would you peg for them?
I think it'll be similar to last year, where the winner in that division doesn't have a huge amount of wins. The winner of the division is going to be 9-10 wins. I'm going to say the Chiefs are at 9.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, we'll see how it. I mean, obviously, and I guess that's just the issue that I have, Zach. It's just how like you're basically just putting your whole season on the shoulders of a second-year quarterback, and I'm just not in love with that. And I mean, Alex Smith had this team in position to win a playoff game, and Andy Reid pissed it away. I don't know. If I were the Chiefs, this is going to sound shady and grimy and unethical. But if I were the Chiefs, you know how I'd handle this situation? I would keep Reid around because he's been a great quarterback coach.
Yeah,
he's had really good success with grooming quarterbacks. That's one thing he does really well. And I would have him groom Mahomes and get him ready. And when he's ready, bye-bye. Bye-bye, Andy. I'd kick him to the curb and get another head coach in here that would actually win a Super Bowl. That's how I would handle it. I know that sounds shady and that sounds, slimy, but look, that's kind of how things work in the NFL and pro sports. That's how I would do it. But they're definitely, and you like the Chiefs, so it's going to be interesting to see going forward. They're definitely one of the more interesting teams to follow next year for sure.
Yeah, and with that division, it's a bunch of I'd say like average to above average teams. None of them really stand out. And I think that's what continues to give the Chiefs a chance. That if they can have a great defense like they've had in the past, they'll have a great shot at it. They're battling the Chargers, battling maybe the Raiders or the Broncos if they make a quick turnaround here based on what they do in the draft and free agency. But both of those teams, I still see it taking more than 1 year. They both have multiple needs to fill there. So I think it's still Chiefs and Chargers battling at the top. I wouldn't be surprised if the Chargers take the division this coming year and the Chiefs are battling for a wild card spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
And one other quick team I wanted to bring up that neither of us have really mentioned is the Colts, because they have, like you had mentioned earlier, probably the best quarterback when he's healthy out of all those groups. But I know my problem is they've got T.Y. Hilton and nothing else around him. The offensive line has been terrible. They've just swung and missed there at tight end. Jack Doyle was meh. They
a 65-year-old running back.
Yeah, well, he's currently a free agent. Frank Gore might be gone. Marlon Mack did not look like he's going to be a starting running back. So they've got to make some kind of move. They're sitting there nicely at the number 3 pick, but they have a lot of positions they need help at. And that's not even mentioning their defense being poor. So they've got a lot of holes to fill. That's why I wasn't touching that team at all, without even mentioning all the question marks about Andrew Luck's health.
Yeah, I see a lot of people projecting Bradley Chubb, defensive lineman from NC State, to them at this pick, and I don't really understand it. Like, this team needs a lot more help than a defensive tackle. And to me, I don't take a defensive tackle, defensive end with number 3 pick. Sorry. Like, when you have that many holes, that's not the direction I'm looking. Like, I'm looking to take maybe a stud offensive lineman, right, or an impact player. Like, let's be honest. I mean, defensive tackle, like, that's just not an impact position. It's just really not. I mean, yeah, at times it is when when your team's like pretty good and the defense around you's pretty good. But I mean, the Dolphins paid Ndamukong Suh $100 million. How's that working out for him? Like, you don't do that kind of stuff. So I would go a different direction there. They got their hands full, though. The whole head coaching situation, boy, that was real strange. Like, they thought they had Josh McDaniels, and he's like, nah, I'm good. Even after he put a staff together, what a shady situation that was. And then they brought in Frank Reich from the Eagles. So a weird situation there in Indy. Really strange right now.
Yeah, and I'm staying all the way away from that there. I'm not a fan of the position that team's in at all. They need a lot of help to make any kind of turnaround. Well, those were the major topics I had there. You have anything else to add before we close out here?
Yeah, just one kind of brief thing I wanted to touch on quickly, which was, I'm sure most of you have heard over the last 5 days or so about the basketball scandal there, the FBI investigation at the University of Arizona, and reports that have come out about Sean Miller reportedly paying high-price recruit last year at a high school, center DeAndre Ayton, paying him the sum of $100,000 to come to his school and play basketball at the University of Arizona. Reports have come out that, look, FBI has wiretaps on Sean Miller saying that, we would pay you $100,000 to come to our school. And if you think about it, it's definitely believable. I mean, Arizona wasn't a huge player in DeAndre Ayton, and a lot of people were surprised when DeAndre Ayton picked Arizona on decision day. And now we kind of see why. And there's been kind of reports too about other teams and other situations. Miles Bridges being one with Michigan State, and some stuff with Duke, and it's just it's been an ongoing question and topic for a long time with college players, where should they be compensated in some degree? I mean, whether it's some of them, whether it's all of them. I mean, should there be some sort of compensation? Because at the end of the day, these kids bring a hell of a lot of money to these universities for playing sports. And I mean, I remember watching the Fab Five documentary with Jalen Rose when he was at Michigan, and he was with kind of like a family friend, kind of mentor kind of thing, because his family situation wasn't the best. So he was with like a family friend, and they were walking down Main Street in Michigan, and they went by like a sporting goods store on Main Street, and his jersey was hung up in the mirror, like in the window there. You know, they had like a mannequin that had the jersey on it, and it said Jalen Rose jersey, $100. And he was just like, I looked at that and I felt cheated. Like, I felt like that's not right. Like, these people are making $100 off of me if they sell that, and I don't see any of it. And here I am, I can barely afford to feed myself during the week. So it's definitely a situation that I just kind of want to touch on briefly, is not so much the scandal and not whether that's right or wrong, because I think 9 out of 10, hopefully 10 out of 10 people would see that that's wrong. That you can't, tell a kid that I'm going to pay $100,000 if you come to our school, or I'll buy you a car if you come to our school. That's just wrong. It's ethically wrong. You can't do that. However, Zach, do you think that college athletes should be compensated at some point besides, being on scholarship and getting to go to school for free? Should they be compensated in some other way because of the amount of money that the school makes, not only off of them, but off of, merchandise and all this other stuff? Do you think they should be compensated?
When you told that story about Jalen Rose, that is the most significant story I remember from that same Fab Five there. 30 for 30, one of the best ones I watched. And that really stood out too, how he was saying about how much money they were making when he was struggling to eat every night, eating fast food, things like that. So it does, I think part of that too is being kind of economically disadvantaged going into that situation, like some kids are. It's tough being a college kid. I know even as kind of like a middle class child, like it was still tough. Like I ate cereal for dessert all the time. Like I couldn't afford a whole lot of food there. My car had all kinds of issues. Like, it's tough being a college kid, and I think they should experience some of that. But the amount of money they make off of Division I athletes is absurd, and I feel like that in some way, in some form, that should come back to the athletes in some percentage. I don't have a solution on how that would work, or some kind of payment structure, or what's the most fair, or anything like that. I don't know. I don't have a solution, but I do feel like they need something. Like the Richard Sherman's quote about how time intensive every single day was to be a Division I athlete, and to get through that, of how he's going from practice to film to class to all these different things. And there's no time for a job, for making money, things like that. So
yep.
I think it is something that needs to be worked in some way. Like I said, I don't have a great solution for it, but that's something that needs to be considered.
One of the bigger supporters, as far as thinking that student athletes deserve to get compensated, is ESPN college basketball analyst Jay Bellis, who is adamant. I mean, adamant, and he doesn't make it a secret. I mean, you follow him on Twitter, he tweets about it constantly, and he doesn't care that he works for ESPN or he has a big name on a sports channel. He doesn't care. He makes it known. He's been there, and he's been a college athlete. He knows what it was like, and he makes it clear that, look, these kids need to be compensated. And he always likes to mock the NCAA, saying that because the NCAA at one time said that there isn't enough money, quote, to pay these kids. Like that's laughable. Like, there are a few things that are so stupid and so just idiotic that they're laughable. That's one of them. Because to say that there's not enough money to go around to these kids, at least somewhat, to at least make their life a little better, that's a joke. I mean, do yourself a favor and follow some of these universities on Twitter that are redoing their locker rooms or redoing their weight rooms. Like Michigan just put a huge addition into their training facilities as far as weight rooms, as far as indoor rowing practice rooms, basketball facility. You name it. They had a multi-million, I wouldn't be surprised if it was $1 billion project. Yeah. And these people want to come out and say, the NCAA wants to come out and say, there's not enough money. Stop with that. I firmly believe they deserve to be compensated, at least somewhat. Figure it out. Whether, if you don't want it to be, the same across the board, whether, a guy like Trae Young, who's one of the faces in college basketball right now. If you want to say he should be compensated more than the third string point guard on this team, sure, I accept that. He's not making college basketball money, but okay, but figure it out, do something, because it definitely needs to change. And I think you and I, Zach, we're in the same boat here on this one.
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm not in agreement with you when you're saying about paying players differently. I think it should be closer to even there, that you can't go through and say, okay, you're scoring 25 a game, let's give you more money. You're getting enough rebounds to make more money. You're not getting playing time here. I don't like that as much. But I do think there has to be some kind of standard that right. Each of the players, because they're all college students and they're all going through that right. same schedule. So I think it needs to be worked in some form.
Very good.
Awesome. All right. Well, good show here today. Anything else to add before we close out?
No, man. That's
perfect.
I don't think so. I think it's everything I kind of wanted to talk about. No, I'm good. Go ahead and take us home, man.
All right. Well, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate all the feedback we get, and hope you all have a great week here, enjoying it, moving into basketball season and hockey season for those of you that are hockey fans. Thanks so much for listening to the Lifelong Rivals Sports Podcast. We really appreciate it. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, please give us a follow. Let us know your feedback. Share us with someone else you think would enjoy listening as well. Thank you so much for the support, and have a great week.